Hi, this is Stan. Welcome back to the Crow's Nest Railroad. Not at home, we're over at the intergalactic headquarters of Bob's shop, and we've got a little update for you. I want to show you what's going on with the engine on the American 15-inch gauge steam locomotive. So let's go take a look. Alright, if you follow the channel, you know that this is our 15-inch gauge steam locomotive. Right now it's in Bob's driveway. And I was over here last week, so you can see how tarnished and dirty this monkey business is here. Here's this main rod. Here's our piston. Here's our valve stem here. This comes right off the piston, the con rod here, and then this is the main rod that goes back to the two big driving wheels. So you can see a lot of rust and stuff like that. And Bob's been working on a lubricating project here. We've got 13 or 14 things on the list that need to be done to this chassis before we can get it back up to Pinnacle Peak and Southern before we deal with the boiler. But let me show you what I did last week. Alright, you can see these were all cleaned up. I tore this apart, got this fitting cleaned up, scraped down, just put a little bit of oil on it. And so again, this is our main rod coming off the piston here and our valve chamber. And so the main connecting rod goes in here and comes all the way back here, and let me show you that. And so here it is now. Been cleaning this up, and it's not mirror finished, but it's a lot better than it was. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the connecting rod between those two drivers and pull that off and see if we can clean that up to about the same level. And I apologize, we're not going to have a lot of running trains this week. This is more geeky level stuff, but just an update as to what we're doing. Bob's in there fiddling with the tools as he's manufacturing some hardware for it. Alright, this is what stuff looks like when it's basically unattended for decades. We got to pull this guy off. These are little grease fittings here. Bob says we fill this with grease, tighten this down, and it shoots some grease in here. And here are some wedges that pinch the bronze bearings together as this begins to wear. So I got to pull this all off so we can clean up this rod. I got these bolts off of here and off the back end. So let's see if I can slide this connecting rod out. Alright, needs to be cleaned up. Alright, so we want this one to look like this one. So let me get after it. And at some point, Mr. Scrooge over there is going to allow me to get a new piece of sandpaper, because this I've been using faithfully since like 1987. So they're going to do a movie about you one of these Christmases.
And you lucky dog, you are working at the Robert Strauss shops. You can have all the paper that you want. It is over here.
Bob, this is a brand new sheet of sandpaper. Thank you, man. Here, autograph it for me. Or better yet, write the date on it. All right, we're making progress. Before, and after. And although we tried using some power tools, we decided just to go ahead and do it by hand. Seems to work just as good to get this cleaned up. We're not trying to have a surface where Bob could shave in every morning. We're just trying to get it cleaned up.
Instead, it looks really good. We're going to go ahead then and spray a clear coat over the top of that for now. We may end up either nickel plating them or powder coating them in a nickel color to prevent any future rusting. But at the moment, we're going to go ahead with the clear spray, and we'll make that decision for the other options at a later date.
Yeah, you can see the minute I touch it with any oil or grease, it hangs onto it. So
Yeah.
it feels smooth, but I suppose there's a lot of small pits that you can't see or
There
feel.
are, but we're fine. It's just a steam locomotive. It doesn't have to launch the space shuttle. It's just a toy.
Yeah, and it's going to get very dirty during its normal workday. Okay, let's get after this side. Get everything pulled apart, and I thought I would show you the bearing. This is typically how it's done here on this locomotive. There's these bronze split bearings, and to facilitate keeping this tight and not slopping as it begins to wear a little bit, you can see on either side of the bearing there are these two pieces of steel, and the wedge goes down on that groove in there, pushes against this bolt, and drives this bronze bearing together so that it won't wear an oblong pattern. So I'm going to have to get all these cleaned up as well. And while I'm doing the no-brainer stuff, shining up those side rods, Bob is doing the heavy-duty intellectual stuff here, working on this pump. Is this equivalent, Bob, to a little steam pump that you have on a small little hobby locomotive?
No, this is
What is this doing?
a mechanical lubricating pump, and it's got a series of.
Not for heavy steam oil or
Rollers.
anything.
It is for heavy steam oil, and you have a reservoir that feeds oil into the input side of things, and then you have a ratcheting mechanism that enables this whole ensemble to create pressure by rotating this mechanism, and this cam pushes up and down on a plunger,
Okay.
and that plunger then
So this is the actual pumping part,
that's
up
the
and
actual
down.
pumping part, and there's 8 ports around the perimeter of this. So when this
Oh.
rotates and lifts, and this cam lifts this plunger and also forces it down, then you get that compression that you need
To
in
force the oil,
to the 8 ports.
lubricating channels.
And then there's a gravity-fed tank that feeds oil into this. So as this goes back and forth, why it happily continues rotating, and that rotation forces oil through all the 8 ports. They're plugged right now, but when we get ready to install, we'll put in fittings like this in each of the ports and run the lines to each of the
Gotcha.
lubrication
Okay.
locations.
So this is not for oiling in the cylinder. This is for the rotating parts.
This is for the rotating parts. The oiling into the cylinder actually can occur with this, and in our case, we're going to do it that way. This will actually have one line for each side of the cylinders, and we'll put steam cylinder oil in there. The challenge is that puts steam cylinder oil into all the other lubricating points, which don't necessarily need that heavy a weight oil. So ideally, you'd like a little lighter weight in some of the locations where the linkages and bearing points are operating, for the valve gear, for example. But you don't really need steam cylinder oil until you enter the cylinders themselves, because steam cylinder oil is water soluble and it emulsifies in the water of in the steam, and then lubricates the rings of the main pistons and the valve seat as it passes through those mechanisms.
I'll let you keep busy there.
Yeah, well, somebody has to keep busy. Because you're certainly not doing anything.
I'm pushing buttons on the
Yeah,
camera.
that
I mean,
helps.
you know,
That
I can't tell you how much work that
That
is.
could be terribly difficult.
Talk about breaking a sweat.
I'm sorry, buddy. You are breaking a sweat. And see, as this lifts up, you adjust the volume of this pump through this set screw and nut. So that as this cam rotates, there are certain portions where this is not in mechanical contact with the cam ramp, because you don't need oil, that much oil. And as this rotates, as it keeps pumping, then the ramp starts coming up, pushing this up and giving you a pumping action within the body of the cylinder.
So the tighter this is clamped on there, the more vigorous action in both directions you get. So if
Exactly
you loosen
right.
it up, there's a little play in the center,
Yes,
basically,
and you'll
like
see
some
that plate
lash.
here right now. So this is set for pretty low volume. I'm not sure where we'll need to set it, because we need to pump to 8 locations, and that's going to require, I think, the full capacity of this pump.
Well, that is way more than
You ever wanted to know?
exactly.
Okay, well, there you are. Now you know more than I do.
Well, I'm back home here, and just want to thank Bob for all the information and for the fun we had working on the chassis today. We're going to keep you posted as to all the updates on our restoration project for the American steam locomotive, 15-inch gauge. And as you can tell, especially if you follow this channel, restoring a steam locomotive like this is not a quick process. There is a lot involved. This particular locomotive was never completely finished for a steam up. So it's been essentially a display locomotive for its whole life, a museum display. We're trying to bring it into life and breathe some steam into it so that we can actually run it at the Pinnacle Peak in Southern. Well, for Bob, this is Stan saying thanks so much for joining us here on the Crow's Nest Railroad. See you right here next time.